MVF himself, Matt Vanfossen. Thank you for coming in.
No problem. Thank you.
And Matt brought a guest with him. He texted me last night and said, I have a great idea. I'm going to bring in Nanny with a B because she has been there since the beginning. Thanks for coming in also.
Thank you.
And
Now I know where you live.
That's scary.
and if any of our viewers from Coleraine and Mount Pleasant area are watching this thinking she looks familiar, think Morse Pharmacy.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Yeah.
We used to rent videos from you every week after breakfast.
You know what? That was like the one period of my life that you worked was at that pharmacy, right? When you worked at the pharmacy, and I forgot they had VHS rentals.
Mm-hmm. It'd be Linda's now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was
You was a tiny.
tiny kid.
Well, what we need to do is just maybe give a second for our younger generations to Google
Look up
what
VHS.
VHS
Yes.
and video rentals are, because
Exactly.
Think about Blockbuster, but at a pharmacy with a restaurant.
Yeah.
what's funny is like you remember, like I remember when everybody come out with VHS. I don't care where you went. It could have been a mom and pop five and dime store. They had a video rental section.
Yeah.
The one tire place that had it was, and then you had those ones. There was in Wintersville. There was the video rental, and then there's the Western swinging doors that
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
only the adults went into.
You had to check your
The
ID.
fun section. The fun section. So new music, new
Yeah.
video,
Yeah.
and it took off. How many streams are you up to with this new single?
The new single is almost to 100,000 streams.
100,000 streams.
It is working its way up there. I just had a conversation on my way here today with my radio promoter, Jennifer Blair. We're getting increased ads on a lot of the stations that are already playing us, and there's several new ones that are going to be adding us this week. So we look to actually show up on the Music Row charts within the next couple weeks. You have to get into the top 80 to make the physical chart
really?
that everybody sees. So we're getting there. We're super close. So I'm pretty excited about it. And then tomorrow starts with our music video promoter, Mr. Craig Ban, who is going to get it on CMT.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
So when you were saying like the song was going out for ads, a lot of people asked me what that meant.
Sure.
It's basically you have everything ready to go for a certain time, pretty much in a nutshell.
Yeah, so when a song goes for ads, it's the official date that radio stations are allowed to start adding it to their playlists. And just because it's out there doesn't mean they'll do it. But the way this has worked, and I'm getting a masterclass of it now, like some stations picked it up for 5 spins for the week. Okay, and then it moved to 10. Today, a couple of stations moved it from 10 to 20. So and that's what it is, ads. So like, there's a whole bunch of major label artists that are trying to get ad space, and then there's independent people. So each spin that an independent artist gets is taking away from something that has a lot of money behind it.
Yeah.
And so it's like that thing I've said forever. Sometimes the only way to overcome a circumstance is someone giving someone else a fighting chance. And so these program directors are like giving some independent people a fighting chance. And even last week, I got a phone call from a buddy who has a friend at WCOL, and he's like, I need the WAV file of the song, and I need a liner. And I'm like, what? For WCOL? That's like the #1 country station in Ohio. He said, yes, they like the song.
Nice.
Nice.
So I think things, are happening for a reason, and it's great that it is truly, well, you said this when I first sent it to you, truly me
Yeah.
as a musician. And I think that it's so cool to hear all these stories and all these people who have that name, this Get Me Now person that will text you out of the blue and try to get you back into their lives, and they all have a name, they all have a story, and that's what I've always wanted as an artist, is just to have something for people to relate to.
That's awesome, and I'm so happy and proud for you. It's just to see it coming, and I like same thing. I didn't know about the ad process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So So obviously, Fast Car by Luke Combs has like
I saw you play that recently.
Mm-hmm.
4 million
Yeah.
Right.
cycles a day because it's
Right.
like every third song. And I love Luke Combs, but I was tired of Fast Car when Tracy Chapman put it
Sure,
out.
I understand.
It's just like, good Lord. I mean,
Yeah.
but yeah, no disrespect to Luke Combs, but yeah, take some stuff away from him.
Well, I guess that would be the goal. And it's been interesting to just find out. Like, there was a week that Chris Stapleton put out a new single, and it sucked up all the ad space. So I didn't get very many that week. And then the next week, Cody Johnson did, so we didn't get as many that week. But this week, it's just everything every day. Something's coming out of the woodwork. They're plus 10, this, that, and the other. So it's super. It's I never understood because I never could understand it because I never had the money to put behind doing something like this.
And it's interesting, like I said, I just by you going through the process and talking to you and talking to Razor, like I didn't know how all that behind the scenes, and it's very interesting.
Yeah,
And sometimes it leaves you head scratching,
sure.
but I mean now it makes sense. And like you said, Chris Stapleton, who like you said has big label and money and everything that throw behind it. Like, yeah, he's gonna jump, but like you said, now that you're getting more and more, and people are hearing it, and they're like, now you're gonna start getting that, and it's amazing how behind the scenes work.
And you're actually the producer behind it too, because you're putting everything out.
Yeah.
For it.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is that last year I was able to come together, record a redone version of "If This Were a Love Song" with Jamie O'Neill. Bring her to the valley, meet her, perform with her, become friends with her, and she has really helped me in this process. She introduced me to the radio promoter. She introduced me to the music video promoter. Like, she has helped guide this, and she shares things on her posts and stuff. And I think the interesting thing is, I thought if I do a song with somebody that I looked up to, it was going to like change my life. Well, maybe it didn't necessarily work out that way, but meeting her and the knowledge that she has given me has literally helped me more than anything in the last decade of my life, because I understand how things work now because I have a friend in the business that can tell me what to do. So
That's awesome. I'm super happy for you.
And you mentioned music video. That's out on YouTube, right?
it is, yes.
So for people wondering, like, behind the scenes of music videos, take us through like that day. Are you getting there early? You in makeup for 2 hours, and then like, what's the filming like? How many times did you have to sing your song?
So I didn't wear any makeup that day. I did not do that. So one of the wonderful things I think about getting a song that you love and dreaming up the video treatment. I didn't have a video producer that was like, I'm going to do this. I hired a friend of mine's friend to do the video. We rented the penthouse suite at the waterfront in Morgantown. I told him my idea. He furthered it into a storyboard that we followed that day. I had to sing the song ad nauseum because I don't think lip singing it would have portrayed what we got out of it.
You can really tell when you watch music videos. You can
so,
tell,
yeah,
even if
absolutely.
you don't know it's lip sync, something feels off when it is.
Even when you go to live shows,
And it's like,
Yeah.
So when you watch that one at the midpoint of this video where I hit that really big note and I turn to the side and there's that rack shirt, which I'm wearing today. Rack shirts be forever. But anyways, when you do that, when I did that, like, that is the true emotion coming out of my face. And that's actually one of my favorite parts of the whole entire thing. Is I turn sideways. It's like I'm angry. And it's so wonderful. But to think that was $500. And to have, that's all I spent. That's all he wanted to do the video. And to have a video that Brass Lens Media did that is potentially probably going to be on CMT.
nice.
That we shot in Morgantown. Like, who would have ever thought? I never would have thought. And I've done some semblance of music videos before, but never one like this. And, just that whole entire thing, it's doing that whole, like, Cody.
Yeah.
Okay, so Cody, the drums drums for me now. Like
Shout out to Cody.
Yeah, Cody Meadows, we love you. But he always does this like cheers thing. So that's why when I was sitting at the bar, I was like, I bet I know what brought this on. Probably drinking there alone, and I cheers the camera. That was totally him. Like, it was so cool. And you know, that's one of those things. Like, and I thought about it through everything, that just making sure that it authentically got the story across. So we definitely, I did, you know, have to do some things. Like, I think I put on some lotion on my face. I think I might have had a pimple that day. That's the behind the scenes that you want. I had a pimple. But, you know, something going on. Also, I had gotten my hair cut right before then, and so I had the big fat roll in the back of my head that I hate so much, that is just there. But I heard it's genetic. It's not really just because I'm fat. So that was prominent in the video as well. So it was a guest star, I called it,
Nice.
in the video. But it's wonderful. It was such a wonderful experience. It was an 8-hour day. We wanted to do more outside on the balcony, but it was raining. So we could only do things on the parts that were covered.
Yeah.
Because my whole entire thing was, I envisioned this big note coming over the balcony, because there's the river right there and all this stuff. But, you know, we're getting wet, you know, so we didn't do that.
Yeah.
But I still liked my angry, like, aggression turn. It was, like, wonderful. So...
And what's the Easter egg count in that video? Because I caught a couple. I texted you. I'm like, does this mean this person? Does this mean this?
Yes.
And you're like, you're the only person that...
you would be the only person, because, I mean, it's funny when you spend so much time with someone, like Jake and I did, going to do all of these acoustic shows. Like, we had a lot of time to talk. So, in the beginning of the video, the background on the phone is the Titanic, which at the time everybody was talking about that submersible that went down and imploded. So that was kind of the point behind that, but also because I love Titanic. And then once I throw the phone, it changes to Michael Myers. And Michael Myers represents a lot of things in my existence, and some people that maybe the song is directed towards. So, so that shares that commonality.
And what's funny is because I didn't know, but I saw the Michael one, and I'm sitting there going, I didn't think he was that much of a horror fan.
Oh, I love Halloween. Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, now okay.
Yeah.
Sense.
So it's one of those things. Like, we as people, you know, my background on my phone right now is a picture of my grandmother, Eric, and I at the Black Sheep when we played there the last time. And, you know, we symbolically do things based on certain reasons or whatever.
Right.
So in that moment of that person's life, me, whoever I am that day, you know, after I get a text from that person that I don't want to hear from, and this is the one thing that, like, really was our thing, like, you just throw the damn phone and there it is. And then, you know, there was another one as well. It was the number of texts that it got to from the ex. It got to 69 texts, so that was an Easter egg too. And I'm trying to think if there was any others. There was a guitar in the background that was placed there on purpose, just because I don't play. You know, that was my downfall. We talk about what musicians should be doing. You know, a lot of people are like, "Well, you don't play an instrument." Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. I'm not a real singer. Or George Strait. They talk about this. I read this the other day. They were talking about, well, you know, George Strait ain't a real artist. He never wrote any of his hits. Well, I didn't know that was a requirement.
Right.
You know, to be like, Reba's written 2 of her songs.
I was about to say, if that person would know the amount of people that wrote for other people,
yeah, I mean,
their
it's
whole
constant.
world would flip. Yeah,
it's constant, and that's the thing. Like, yeah, I was never blessed with that gift yet currently in my time to really have anything I want to share publicly with people, because it was very dark and personal. But, you know, that doesn't take away from my ability to find music that will correlate to people and touch people in a way, and then produce a vocal that's
you gotta match that
captivating.
emotion.
Yeah. And I will say that, you know, there are just some people out there that I've just even recently have had people say, well, it's just too bad you don't write. Like, wouldn't it be great if this song was doing well and you wrote it?
But I mean, you look at how many. I mean, just probably all of us could name off 5 different people that are phenomenal writers that they don't want that spotlight.
Yeah.
They don't want to be
Yeah.
up there singing. So does their songs not hold as much value because they don't want to
Sure.
sing it? Absolutely not. That makes no sense. So
Yeah.
you can't fault a musician and say, well, you don't write your own songs. So what? Like you said, you remember we were talking about when you pick out a guitar, you don't pick the guitar.
Guitar
Guitar,
picks too, yeah.
Sure.
Same way with song.
Right, yeah.
You just don't pick out a song. That song picks you, and it hits something in your core and in your soul, and you're like, this hits home for me on whatever, with family, with friends, with loved ones, with experience. It meshes with me, and that's what I want to go after.
And that's right. And these demos of Mallory Hopes, she and Phil Barton wrote 4 of the songs that are going to be on this new record. These demos of hers that she's given me, I have been listening to them on SoundCloud since I first met him. First met Jake. Like, these were the songs that were getting me through the heartache of that time of my life. And then she got a Christian record deal, and she took all of her writing down. And I still knew the words in my head to these songs. And then one night on Instagram, and I tagged her in something about one of the songs, and she got a hold of me, and the next thing you know, she's sending me the demos, and she's like, I want you to cut anything you want to, because she chose a different life. Her husband's a record executive, she is a mother of 4, and that's just not the life that she wants.
A lot of people just don't.
Yeah.
I don't know his name. The guy that just wrote that Rich Men North of Richmond.
Oh yeah.
Whoever,
Yeah.
everybody's talking about, like, I can't believe he's turning down these $8 million contracts. But what they don't say is, like, you sign one, and then a year from now, when you have a dying relative in the hospital and you have a show that night, and if you miss that show, you owe the company $7 million.
Right.
You're literally selling your soul sometimes.
And that's the thing that I think that people don't understand about all of those things. Like, even with the TV shows, The Voice or American Idol, whatever, you sign a contract. So even if you get on the TV show and you don't turn a chair, you owe them 25% of what you make from singing for 5 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, who wants to take that risk? Because even the people that win the show don't always necessarily do much.
So, for 5 years, you're playing for $100.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. Could be 25.
That's it. I am sorry.
Yeah.
I
won't-
play a lot of free
I
shows.
won't bring up their name, but Matt and I opened up for, it was an American Idol or Voice winner twice, like 5 years away from each other. First year, he was still under that American Idol contract, big production, management. And then later on down the road, we opened up for him, and it was like 2 bottom, 2 top sound system and bare bones. Yeah.
And that's when we had a tour bus and they were in a Sprinter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Well, let's talk about those moments let's talk about that first time. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
Let's talk about the tour bus trip.
How did I mean, naturally we know, but maybe people don't know. Like, give the people watching the podcast kind of like your little biography. Like, how'd you get started? Where'd you go when you got involved with him, and kind of walk them through to kind of where you are now.
So I started singing in karaoke contests when they redid Wheeling Downs in 2004, and I remember distinctly rehearsing Austin by Blake Shelton over and over and over and over again. I went. I did not win the first time. I got second or something. But I got money, so that was helpful. And I met this woman who was running it, Joni Karaoke, out of Pittsburgh. And honestly, she became like such a catalyst to me singing. And so a friend of mine that I had gone to elementary school with, his dad was there that night at the karaoke contest, and he paid for my first demo. Randy Baldwin, he lives in Bel Air, still forever grateful to him. And he paid for the first demo. So I went, and the demo was literally just covering songs. So that first one had like Clay Walker and Jimmy Wayne and some good old like 2003 2004 country, and still some of my favorite. But so then we just started doing contests. Grandma and I were talking about the one, I think it was the windmill, not the windmill, something in North Wheeling that had like, maybe it was a lighthouse. It was the lighthouse. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And I won that karaoke contest. I remember. I think I won $50, but regardless, we traveled all over the place doing these contests. And then I got into Colgate Country Showdown contests, which in the mid 2000s, that was like a big deal. Like you submit a song, blah, blah, blah. They pick 12 people. You perform with a live band. We went to one in Tyler County.
Was that with Danger Frog?
No,
Okay.
that was Wheeling Island Idol.
Okay.
But we got there in Tyler County, didn't win the first time. We went to another one in somewhere in Coshocton, maybe, didn't win that one. My mom was there wearing a Mountaineers poncho in the rain because she's an asshole, and she just wanted to make everybody mad because we were in Buckeye Country and she was wearing a Mountaineers thing. But and then the next year we went back to Tyler County and I won. And I remember Grandma was there, and I remember she had turned away from me because a lady nurse, she was a nurse, I'll never forget this, and she asked me to sign her boob. And I was like, my grandmother's right here, so let's wait till she turns and then I'll do it. But it was, we had such a wonderful time. So we went to States. It was in Parkersburg. I just was looking at pictures of this the other day. I did not win. I made wonderful friends from it, though. Heather Warren, that I just got to see when I was on vacation. She was an artist. She's a super good songwriter. And then we transitioned kind of into the Wheeling Island Idol era, which was the summer of 2009. WTRF sponsored a Wheeling Island Idol. Started out with 500 people. I made the top 5. Every week, every Thursday. We were actually there when Michael Jackson died. Like, I remember distinctly coming out of there to get like a breath of air or something before I had to sing, and it was on the TV. We got third. We made to the top 5, got third. And people were angry, to say the least. Because we had built, they would show it on TV every week, and we had built like this massive conglomerate of people that were coming. They had T-shirts, these like she's got right here, T-shirts. I'm a Van fan. I remember those fans. There was everything. And when they announced that I got third, you could just hear people gasp. And honestly, it was probably what people didn't know is that I was working on my first record, the first incarnation of Time Ain't What It Used to Be and some other songs. But while that contest was going on, I lived in Columbus at the time, and I was working on a record. So in October, after this was over, we did a CD release concert. Time Ain't What It Used to Be was already on WOVK, and we had over 500 people there with all the anchors from Channel 7 and all this stuff to celebrate. It was wonderful.
Awesome.
So losing actually made me a winner.
Yeah.
Truthfully, because people were like, I'm going to get behind him.
Yeah.
He deserved, whatever. So it was wonderful. A guy that got second, he, I think, 1 year was like the #1 Bret Michaels impersonator in the country. So
was it Gary O?
Yes.
Yeah, from up around.
Yes,
yeah, I know Gary.
Yes, he got second. Still bitter about that one. Not really. But it was the catalyst to everything. So that summer, we did all that, got that going on, and then in true fashion. So I'm going to tell a couple stories. I feel like this is an important part of who I am as a person. So the first time I heard Tell Me What It Used to Be on WOBK, my mom and I were going to Young's Cafeteria for breakfast. Didn't know it was coming on. It was Sunday morning. I had played a gig somewhere, probably Generations, maybe the night before, and the next thing you know, there's the intro of the song, and I remember we were passing the sewage plant in Shadyside. And how appropriate. And we rolled down the windows, we were screaming, we were crying. What a wonderful moment to have to share that with my mom. And then a couple months later she called and she was crying because they had played the song, and she's like, I've heard it 100 times on the radio, but this time they started talking about you afterwards. and it hit me that was my kid. And that moment will live with me forever.
Yeah.
And then a couple of months later, I was working in Columbus, and she went to work on St. Patrick's Day, had a stroke at work, and never came home. And while I was on my way to the hospital, as I was getting off the Wheeling hospital exit, I turned the radio back on because I had been calling people the whole entire way, and there was the song.
Wow.
So when people talk about how much like fate plays into things, and I know that I half gave up after she died. I mean, I have this lovely woman next to me, and I have been so thankful for all of her time and presence. But, you know, they both were the catalyst of that number one fan for me. And she talked about me constantly to everybody. I still run into people that worked with her at the time that talk about how proud she was of me. And sometimes the darkest moments that I personally might be having some struggles, that it's like she's sending me a message through somebody else. So that's how we got there. So that summer, I remember calling my grandma and I said, hey, so I'm going to play side stage Jamboree in the Hills before Brooks and Dunn. You want to come with me? And she was like, well, yeah. And so we got to play side stage. It was one of those wonderful times where I think that a lot of times we took for granted Jamboree in the Hills. It was everybody's drunken vacation. It was whatever. But for a local artist to be able to play side stage in between these national acts during that time, that just didn't happen. A lot of people, a lot of people didn't get that opportunity. I was so blessed to have that opportunity. And then 2 years later, I'm playing main stage. I'm on the T-shirts. I'm in the program, and we were fortunate enough to do that the year that you joined in 14 as well. And then obviously, I think we could see the end of things was coming because I think that we want to make money from the beer. We want to make money from this. I mean, there was a whole laundry list of reasons that they wanted to change what they did, but and just even thinking about when you were younger, talk about what the Jamboree USA that they had in Wheeling. Like, national acts came every weekend to play there. And so what you saw, and then Jamboree in the Hills on top of it, like, Wheeling was kind of like a mecca. Yeah. Like a little mini Nashville, right?
Yes, it was.
I mean, who did you see?
Oh, Buck Owens, Ronnie Millsap, Crystal Gale, Johnny Cash.
Oh, you saw Johnny Cash? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
On a Sunday.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I remember growing up, like, I remember my parents come down to Wheeling to see, like, a number of acts. Like, my mom's a huge Statler Brother fan. So
oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Statler Brothers. Oh, yes.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
I know that they've seen the Statler Brothers. In fact, I think their last live album was recorded at Capital City Music Hall.
Oh, okay.
So, but yeah, like, we were just talking about that. Like, the acts that would be at, West Banco and Capitol Music Hall, and it was like you said, it was a mecca, and it just faded away.
I remember seeing Reba McEntire at the West Banco Arena in 1994, which in many circles, 94, 95, people consider that like the height of her. She had more lights and tractor trailers on the road than Madonna did. I saw a video of that the other day. She did. I mean, her shows in the 90s, you couldn't touch them.
Right.
And obviously that's why she's so important to me. I just think, and my grandmother, much to her dismay.
I got to see her, though.
She got to see her, though. But it's just been a thing. I remember being at
awesome.
my great-grandma Stella's house, being babysat on a Saturday, and there was this red-headed woman on the Grand Ole Opry, and she never let go of me. I'm 100 years old now at this point, but she didn't. She never let go of me. Like, and I think she's been such a wonderful guide of who to be and how to be as an artist, and and that's why, one of those reasons why I don't take things so personally when people say, well, wouldn't it be better if you wrote it? Because she's not written anything that was huge of hers, but it was just so cool. And there's one of these things, I always remember this, and obviously I want this. I'm going to say this to you now here, so you can't say no. But on the back, the cellar door of my grandparents' house is this super old, faded license plate that says, I love country music. And that has always stuck with me. That I would honestly, it should be an album cover, probably coming soon. We'll see.
Nice.
But I think about all of these times that we had. I mean, even together, all of the years that we played together, all the things we saw, and that's one of the things that I don't think people appreciate enough, specifically about Jake, is that nothing phases him. Like nothing upsets him. They could not know where we're gonna do this or not know where we're gonna do that, and he was like, "Cool, we'll figure it out."
Yeah.
It was just so good, like such an experience to see this kid on Jamboree in the Hills on TV with his like, what was that guitar?
It was a Razorback.
Yeah, it was a
Dean Razorback.
It was this like nowhere near country guitar, but it was just so wonderful. You know, we did. That's what that was all about. Like, if you need something, I want to take care of it. I'm gonna do this. We're gonna do that. It was like a brotherhood. We're just gonna take care of each other, and that's what makes you happy in music is in being around people, because you have to like the people that you play with. It's so important.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's so important because if you don't, it makes life miserable.
I mean, there's more time on the road than there is actually like performing and doing music.
Oh, yeah.
You have to be with people that you can sit on Route 70 or State Highway 70 with and just be able to talk to.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember we've had plenty of hiccups, but specifically, let's pay homage here where it's due. So let's talk about that first tour bus trip with Mike Palmer and Doug Boston had gotten us a tour bus, and we had the guy from the newspaper was coming to do a ride along with the Vanfossen crew, and
It was just before or after Almost Famous. He's like, hey, I got an idea. I'll ride along with this bus.
I'm sure it was after, but wonderful trip up. There was just all these people. Were you not? You weren't. You didn't ride there that's because she was camping with her boyfriend already at the place we were going to play at Wood Lake. I remember this. That was when Buck had that.
Oh, okay.
That camper that was like a teepee. So, anyways, so we do the ride along up there, and Doug parks this tour bus behind the stage in the grass, and we set up and we perform, and it gets mildewy out, and she just sunk in.
Just what happens when dirt gets a little wet, just a little muddy,
especially when there's a megaton bus.
Tons and tons, yeah.
So couldn't get out. Some trucks tried to pull the bus out with chains, and they snapped like nothing.
Had to call a wrecker.
Call a wrecker that came out of like, I don't know, Akron, Canton, something. It was crazy. I just remember that we had taken all the comforters out of the tour bus, and some of us were wrapped in comforters sitting on the stage because we got chilly. And I thought, well, surely he's not going to write about this in this article. But, much to my dismay, Mr. Palmer did write about that.
Nice.
The article was wonderful, but yes, he did point out that we were stuck in the grass.
The trials and tribulations of tour life.
Tour life, yeah. And then a couple of years later, we were going with, it was a Sprinter. I think we had the Sprinter and something else, and we were driving to a show in Columbus, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it snowed. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that was the show. We got stuck on the interstate for a while. We sang videos in the car.
Yes.
We did that. Mm-hmm. And that was the show. That was the very first show that your mother-in-law came to on Valentine's Day 2014 with her crappy date.
Yeah.
And the only thing that got her through was this chubby guy in a pretend cowboy hat.
I was about to say, that was the only time you wore a cowboy hat on stage.
And it was fate. It was fate. You weren't there.
Which I listen, you have no idea how grateful that I am that date for her went horrible and that you were there, because like you said before, how just sometimes the universe lines up and her meeting you and
Then her daughter,
daughter
coming to the next show and becoming obsessed with Jake.
stalking
Yeah.
Jake, and then them being in the area for the bridal show, and so yes, thank you for playing that show on Valentine's Day, because you've now made me probably the happiest man on the planet.
Who did we open up
Jeff
for?
Bates.
Jeff
It
Bates.
was
That's
Jeff
right.
Bates.
Yeah.
And you know what? I think about that a lot. I think about the amount of life that came from that one event.
Yeah.
First of all, I love your wife in more ways than I can count. Obviously not, that way, but she's such a soulmate of mine. And that was such a wonderful moment. And then the next time we played there, Blazing Saddles, that doesn't exist. And then the daughter came, and just the look on her face when she saw Jake for some reason, even though she came with another guy.
I told her to ditch the zero and get with a hero.
Right.
That was my line. That was my line.
And you think about that looking back
worked.
now.
It did.
Like, it was all a catalyst to... I remember distinctly when I did the GoFundMe for the 1984 album, and Kaylee was like, I don't want dinner with you.
That was one of the
donate.
rewards.
Yeah.
Was dinner with
I don't
Matt.
want dinner with you. Can I have dinner with your guitar player? And I said, sure. And that was it. And then I married them, which was wonderful. I cried when I did that. And now they have another baby on the way. And it's just like, it's funny how life has just worked out this way. It's so wonderful. Like, regardless of what happens, like, I know if something happens to me and I'm gone in 10 years, like, every time you see your wife, you're going to think of me. I'm selfishly saying that. But like, after I'm gone, if I leave this world before you, you're going to be like, this happened because of this. And it just makes me so happy.
Yeah.
So speaking
Just
of places,
so many events that happened. Like,
Yeah.
if that didn't happen, we wouldn't be bonging Jungle Juice. I'll blame my roots while performing
yeah.
with Eric's friends. Shout out to Eric's friends.
That's when. Well, first of all, even
Our friends.
when played "Blame My Roots," and I probably told you this, but when Razor called and said, "Yeah, you can play bass for us," I was driving to my parents' house, and I pulled off the side of the road. I jumped out of my car and I started like jumping up and down. Then I get to play with Matt. I'm playing with Razor. It was like same thing. It was like I was so stinking excited, and then probably the most nervous I've been since my very first ever gig, just because I want to make sure that I do everything right, and then by the end of it, I'm off the stage, like bonging some fluid
Yeah, it was like,
from people I don't even know, and I was like, yes.
It's funny because, like, when you bong something like that, it only happens in like 1.5 seconds, but in your mind, like, there's like a whole episode that happens.
I'm like,
thinking,
am I going to have to
there's
go for
whiskey in
monthly
this?
testing after this? Did
Yeah.
I just get hepatitis? What happened?
what
here?
was there? And I think that is true. And even in that moment, as we did that day, a lot of this, and I think I believe in giving credit where it was due. A lot of what happened between 11 and 16, musically, if Jug and his parents hadn't come along and said, we want to pay for you to go in the studio, I wouldn't have had any of that music. And there was a time that anything I put out to Froggy in Pittsburgh, like, they spun it like it was crazy.
Yeah.
Constantly playing on there, and those were super wonderful times. There was so much good that came from it, and I think that I'll forever be grateful for that. And it doesn't mean I don't love those songs either. I mean, I know Boom will be the bane in my existence.
But how many people come up to you and be like, I relate to Boom so much?
Oh my God, they all do.
But
They all do.
But like, as far as like compared to like Get Me Now, I'm sure a lot more people are like, this relates to my life so much more than just talking about bar stools all the time.
Absolutely.
Well, sure, and I think
You feel that connection with somebody.
I was listening to a song the other day, and I sent it to your wife today, and she said I only listened to 4 lines and didn't make it to the chorus because I can't listen to it until after work because I'm going to cry. But there's a song that was just released, and I waited. It was released during Mother's Day, and I couldn't do it. But there's a artist that I loved in the early 2000s called, her name was Rebecca Lynn Howard, and she released a song called I Am My Mother. And I waited and waited and waited, and then finally the other day I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to this, because I had seen clips and whatever. So I listened to it, and that's everything that made me feel is what I hope to God that my new record will do for people. Like, it doesn't matter if I ever play a stadium for 50,000 people. I would love to. My goals right now are Music Row Chart, Grand Ole Opry, CMT, and then see what happens. I have short-term goals. I think it's realistic to try to do that, but like, if I can make people feel the way that she made me feel in my car, I've done my job, I think, for sure.
Yeah.
So speaking of doing our job, so since Nanny's here, do you think we could let's share your favorite experience thus far, your proudest moment of nannydom?
Well, we know it wasn't you signing that boob.
No.
We've already established that. So
Where do I start? My goodness, I've been every step of the way with you, so you know that. I don't know. You're so good. People, I don't know. I don't know why, but people just don't know. I was telling the Comcast guy today how good you was. He knew you.
Oh, really?
He's seen you before.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, you know, I don't know where to start. Or
Yeah,
where,
I think
where to end.
my favorite place we played acoustically regularly was the wine cellars, because that would always be like a family dinner almost before we would go up and perform.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was always a good time. We had such a wonderful experience there. And I'm just thinking the year that we rode into Jamboree in the Hills on the tour bus, and then we played that stage.
I wasn't on the bus that day, I don't think.
I don't remember specifically, but just thinking about standing on the side of that stage, what was that like?
See, all those people. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Just all those people you just can't imagine until you've been there.
Yeah, that's true. And nobody will get to now.
And the outfits
yeah.
that some of these people was wearing. Oh
The
my
outfits
God.
and coolers.
Speaking of which, there's ladies that were always wearing the American
True,
flag
yeah.
bikinis. Two of them messaged me the other day about this song. And I thought, well, if I can make you feel something, then I think I've done my job right.
Yeah, that's right.
I remember specifically this one time we were at Blazing Saddles, and I still have this picture of you doing a shot.
Oh, I was blackmailed into
You were
that.
blackmailed, I think.
Yeah.
But I do have it. One of these days it'll probably end up my background on my phone, so people will be like, oh.
Oh,
But
my
I
God.
do tell her, and that's one of the things that I did. I even did this the other day. She wasn't there, but I played at the Parkersburg Homecoming last week, and I told everybody the story about how my grandmother has a boyfriend. There was like 2,000 people there, but I told them my grandma has a boyfriend, and that's where she's at tonight. And so we're going to sing Dust on the Bottle, and she's probably drinking a little bit of wine with Uncle Buck. That's what I get to call him.
He drinks beer.
He drinks beer, but regardless. So I always tell her a little story, and it's funny because I said to them, we were talking about something, and I said, oh, don't tell my grandmother that my beard isn't shaped correctly, because she doesn't even like me to have it, let alone if she knew I looked like a mess, she'd get me. She doesn't like beards.
Facial hair.
She's weird.
Look at this.
well, I mean,
Oh, she
it's
got facial hair.
when at one point I really had, my beard was like
Yeah.
You were
down
like
to
Chris
here.
Stapleton's cousin.
Yeah, distant, special cousin, special. And my mom, she was the same way. She was like, I get it, I understand why. Like I said, 20 plus years in the military,
Right.
and you're told how to look.
Yeah.
You come out and you're like, no, I'm not doing that anymore.
You don't
And
have
she
to.
understood.
That's
She
right.
didn't like it.
Yeah.
She understood, but after treatment, I know, like I said, it's not gonna have it back. So that's how I'm kind of experimenting with like the Martin Van Buren, kind
Sure.
of, like whatever you want to call this. But
I mean, mine's just for double chin coverage. That's all it is. I mean,
Yeah,
in fact, if I make a mistake And then I have to shave it all off, and I go to work, and they're like, "You look like a fat 12-year-old." Yeah. Well, that's good. At least I'm young. They do. They say that, but they keep me in check.
And then, like, so when I went through treatment and I had people literally look at me that I've met since, and they're like, "I've never seen your chin." Yeah, I hadn't seen it since 2015 either, but here we are. No, but like going back to what you said, like when you have those songs that just hit you to your core, it doesn't necessarily mean like what genre there is.
Mhm.
Like there's been songs that they could be metal songs, like heavy, but you listen to those lyrics and it could be double bass, all metal, and it can bring a tear to your eye because it literally just like reached right into your soul and it just got you where you were. And I get that. Like you hear those songs that just like
Go ahead.
no, that's just it. Like you get to that point, and it hits you, and it buckles your knees, and that like when you hear that, especially you as a singer, when you find that song that makes you feel like that, and then you find it connects you with how many other people that said that really hit me. That's gotta be just mind blowing for you as a singer. And
gold.
it's your song.
It's gold.
When people come up to you and be like, "Oh man, that hit me right here," and you're like, "Yeah, that's."
I have never had a song that's only been out weeks that is almost at 100,000 streams. It's never. I don't have a song that has 100,000 streams. Period. And honestly, you say that and you're talking about genres. Like, okay, it's like "Because of You" by Kelly Clarkson does that for me. But when I'm pissed off at the world, I will put "One Step Closer" by Linkin Park on repeat in my car, and I'm screaming it at the top of my lungs, and it just makes me feel better. I'm not going to attack anybody, but it gets that anger out of me and that rage. I think that we all have those go-to songs for everything that's going on, and I just want to be someone's go-to song for something.
Yeah.
Do you remember it was right when Where You Going to Run To Now came out? Maybe like a month later, we were playing in Steubenville, and the owner of this bar is like, "This song is me." He said, "My wife and I split up. I'm kicked out of the house." He said, "Where am I going to run to now?"
Yeah, and to not to say that anything I've recorded before didn't have a meaning or a purpose, because a lot of it did. I mean, tell me what it used to be. My God,
Yeah.
like, and the older I get, and when I recorded that song, I was 25 years old the first time. I'm now, and I'm going to be 40 next year. And
Oh, that's a shame.
yeah, I know, it is a shame.
Yeah.
And to think about how my life has changed in those 15 years. I mean, I lost my mom. This year I lost my father. I'm, thankful every day that I have her here with me. But, like, I'm like a 39-year-old orphan just trying to find his way through life. And I thank God for these experiences because, every time I sing that song, every single time, and I know
Yeah.
he can attest to it, I always say, I tell that story of Mom, and then I say I'm sending this up to her to heaven, because that was the only song she ever got to hear her kid sing on the radio. And so forever, there will never be a day that I sing somewhere that I don't sing that song. And there's just so many people that can relate to it.
That
And I know
theme,
your
yeah.
life has to, now that it has changed and you're married with a child, like I feel like you,
Yeah.
another one on the way, like you have to really feel what that is, because it doesn't stay the same.
No, your
I mean-
whole brain gets rewired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes,
It's-
to do.
It's crazy. It's like, I remember on your 30th birthday, we were playing at CDs, and you're like, "My youth is over." 10 years ago.
All right, hold on. Let's take a moment and okay, kids, you can Google CD. That's compact disc.
Right.
You had the whole big book in your car because you had to. It was.
Oh, I remember getting the phone call from her when she finally got rid of the Equinox, and she was like, "There's no CD player in my car. How am I supposed to listen to you anymore in the car?" And I'm like, "Well, I guess you're just gonna have to not, or we can figure out your phone."
All right, so George Strait.
Oh, yeah. So
George Strait.
she has always talked about how much she wanted to see George Strait. So when my dad passed away, and I had some fortunes change. My dad was a complicated person,
Very.
for sure, and for all of his flaws and all of his shortcomings that happened in our lives. There were many years. I remember we talked about Jamboree in the Hills. That time I was opening for Brooks and Dunn, him and my brother were drunk, calling me, yelling, screaming. I needed, they were in a domestic dispute like that. That's the stuff that people don't know. Like, I had to shut my phone off and go sing in front of all of these thousands of people after being called names by my own father. And that was constant. And the last 2 years of his life, he changed in a way. He was sober, and he had changed in a way that I did never expected. And he ended up having a life insurance policy that went to me. I don't know. I didn't know that at the time. But so he gave me this new record. He gave me, a fence for my dogs, so they can be safe. My dogs that I love, at home. Shout out to Rose, Landon, Reagan, and Sadie. And of course, their caretaker and my favorite person, Eric. And, he ruined a lot of things in our lives, specifically holidays. And so when I thought about it, I thought, you know what? I don't want, one, for her to not ever see George Strait, and two, I want to be able to apologize from him. And so we got stadium seats, and we went.
We're good.
And it's not going to be forever. It's not like it's going to make up for everything, but it was a wonderful day. She didn't really care for Chris Stapleton.
No?
He needs a bath. And a haircut. I'm sorry.
Her opinions do not represent the opinions of the station. But he come out on that stage in all of his 70 plus years of age.
71.
71.
It was probably one of the best things. And he sang for 2 hours. Like, I knew all the words, which was scary because I didn't think I did. I would never say I wasn't a fan of George Strait, but I wasn't like, obsessed with him. But like when he came out on that stage and he sang Run, like I was done. And like so much so that I've added 2 George Strait songs to my shows now. Like it was wonderful. Like and his musicians were all his age. They have played with him for all these years. And you see that they do it because they love it.
Right.
And 66,000 people were eating out of his hands. And
69,000.
I'm sorry, 69. I knew I would be corrected if I was incorrect. But so I sent her CDs from Amazon of George Strait. So 2 live albums and this, that, and the other. And, but what an experience for us to have together. I mean, because I took her to see Reba and she got to see her on the floor. And, she could understand a little bit why I love her so much. And then I fully understood after that. Like I haven't stopped talking about George Strait since May. Honestly, it has been wonderful. But I think, sometimes you just don't know until you see them.
Yeah.
You don't know what they have to offer. And I just think even though there was no pyrotechnics and flashing lights and this, that, and the other, like you just were captivated by this man until he was gone. And then the next day, all we did was talk about, well, he didn't sing this one. He didn't sing this one. He didn't sing this one. Well, he couldn't sing everything.
Right.
But, there was a lot of them that he didn't sing. Like, why didn't you sing Carrying Your Love with Me? Hello? Like, what are you doing? But so that was another one, just getting these wonderful experiences to get to have them in. And so for me, like, that was what it was. It was like, you know what? He knows. He knew how bad he screwed a lot of things up, but I could try to apologize for him a little, and give her that, and that was a wonderful day that I will cherish, even down to the me making us go out the wrong side of the horseshoe, and having to call an Uber at 12:30 at night to drive us back to the parking lot that we were at. Because we could, she's a little older than she used to be, so
a little bit.
we had to, I had to get her there safely, and that was one of the things too. Is like trying to find a hotel room in Columbus while that was going on, and I think that big rock thing was going on.
Yeah.
$500 was the cheapest hotel we find, but it was worth every minute of it.
Absolutely.
I mean, it was great. But that Uber driver, he's like, "Oh, you went to the George Strait?" Yep.
Where's your hotel? Yeah, I just need to get to.
We just need to get. I need to get to my
Another
car.
side of the party.
Yeah, you're literally here to just take me to my car. She's a little older than she used to be, and we need to make sure she gets to sit. But that was her first Uber ride. So she's now
Really?
Uber.
Oh, really?
At 82, she's an Uberer.
Remember the first time you saw a Lyft car in Nashville?
Oh God, yes.
Like, so when Ubers and Lyfts first came out in like the cities, they would put mustaches, giant mustaches on the front of their cars to let you know that's an Uber. And that's the first time we saw it. And Matt ran in probably like 4 lanes of traffic in front of this car, like check this like pink mustache out. Drunk in Nashville, just down. What's the main road in Nashville?
Broadway.
Yeah.
Spring down Broadway to chase this car.
Yeah, I might have drank a little that day.
Hear that.
Well, that's a prerequisite for Broadway, is it not? I think
There were times that I was there.
I think there's a
didn't
12 drink minimum.
There might be.
So on this show, the 3 things people are most rabid for are music, sports, and food. When you come to this area, you guys get together. Where's the restaurant that is your go-to? That's open right now.
It's open currently.
Yeah, it's open currently.
Well, her and I typically go to TJ's. A lot of the times, right?
That's across the river.
It's across the river, in Wheeling. But we go to TJ's, and I'm sure a lot of that has to do with the fact that they still have some of the LB's stuff, so that might have something to do with it.
Closest you ever can come to a Slim Jim is still at TJ's.
Right.
So.
And we've been to the Roosevelt in Bel Air.
I've heard good things about
90 years they've been open. That specifically is some place that like my mother and father took us there when we were kids. My mother took I have never stopped eating there. In fact, the cook is the same cook that has been there since I was a child. And when I walk in there, and I'm assuming it's because he's known me since I was a child, but it also could be because people pretend to know that I'm a part-time country star. So, but every time I come in, he's like, Matt! And it's like, it was always wonderful. I mean, there's 10 tables in the place. That's how small it is, but their food is so good.
Yeah.
I keep hearing that. We got to go.
Yeah, you really do. And it's cheap. Like, it's good and it's cheap. And listen, I mean, all the years we were together, you rarely ever see me eat a salad. But when I go there, I get a chopped salad.
Chopped salad. Somebody asked me the other day, like, what was our like go-to like on the road? I'm thinking probably Hungry Howie's. I remember we had a lot of the Hungry Howie's.
Oh God,
pizza.
that pizza. Well, pizza in general was always a go-to. That's the scary part about that. That's probably why I'm still so fat. But I used to drive Jake to every time we were anywhere near a Big Boy.
If it was 50 miles within a Big Boy, we were going to that Big Boy.
Damn.
We went to Big Boy for breakfast after George Strait.
Oh yeah,
Yes, we did.
Well, what's funny is the LB seasoning salt. I absolutely love it. You can only find it. Like I find it on Amazon, and it's so ridiculously priced to get it. I spend it.
Well,
I spend it every time on a 3-pack.
I'm going to let you in on a little secret.
Yeah.
If you go to www.bigboy.com, they have a pantry shop, and that seasoning salt's in there, and it's not ridiculously priced.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Thanks.
You can buy the tartar sauce. You can buy the
Really?
all the
Oh,
sauces.
I'm not gonna lie. A 3-pack off Amazon is $42.
Yeah, no, and I get it. Like there are
Yeah.
things that I just don't skimp on. That's probably would be one of them. But every time I go visit anywhere, specifically for work, they sent me to Michigan, and it's not Frisch's in Michigan. It's Big Boy.
Yeah.
And it was terrible. Every day after work, I went to a different Big Boy because there was like 15 within 20 minutes. And so I would go, and they're like, don't go below 8 Mile. And I'm like, next thing you know, the one I went to was 6 Mile. And I was like, oh, well, guess what? But they had all kinds of crap. You could buy the batter for the onion rings. I mean, everything. It was wonderful. And they're really just like still trying to like stay valid. Although they sold pizza now, which was weird. It was weird. I didn't order the pizza.
Yeah, I like
They
same
never had pizza.
same thing
No.
growing up. Like in Steubenville, there was like 3 LBs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's so much that it's such a part of me growing up.
And pay homage to the fact that big boy sign in Weirton stayed up until like 2 years ago.
Yeah,
They made
they were
the
holding
papers when they
strong,
took it
yeah.
down.
Oh, even the one in the Mexican place that was at the Elboys in Steubenville.
Yeah.
It's still the same shape. They just put Puerto Vallarta on it.
Right.
So every time I drive
hilarious.
by it, I still
You can. That's the thing about those buildings. Like, if they're still standing, they were.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of the other annoying things. Jake would be like on the road with me, and I'm like, "Look, that was an Elby's. Look, that was a Hardee's. That was a whatever. That was a Hills." Like you.
Hills, yeah.
Yeah. What was the name of the mall that you took me to in Cincinnati?
Oh, it was Forest Fair Village.
Yeah, Ben served overseas with a guy from Cincinnati, and when they came back, we were talking about that abandoned mall. Just abandoned mall that you can walk around through, and it's trippy.
Was that the mall where you guys hit the mystery button on the bus?
No.
Okay.
It's like
It's a different mall.
It's 1 million square feet.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time that we were there, I haven't been there since, but
Yeah.
at the time, and it's still open for people to walk in. But at the time that we were there, there was a Bass Pro Shops. You couldn't even get into it from the mall, but it was attached to the mall, and a Kohl's and an arcade store, and that was it.
The rest of it was
Everything
dimly lit,
yeah.
security officers on Segways patrolling.
Because they didn't want you in there taping.
The trippiest part was going by the movie theater and seeing movies from like whenever it shut down and say like '01. You saw all like the
It's crazy, and that's one of those things too. Like it's just like a guilty pleasure for me. One, because I think a lot of times when I think back on this, and I'm sure everybody does as they age, like they think that like that time in the early 2000s or late 90s was like the best of times. And for me, it was. I mean, everyone I loved was still alive and all this stuff. But like, to see how epically things can fail
yeah.
on such a grand scale, and be in it and see the remnants of like Babies R Us and Toys R Us and this, that, and the other, and you're just like,
Yeah.
wow, it's just creepy. Like, you can't explain the feeling.
For me, it's I know that I'm going to show my age. Mine was same thing. Growing up in the 80s. When malls were really malls, and when CDs finally come out, and like Fort Steuben was, every place was every storefront had something in it. And in fact, I remember growing up is my parents, we would go to a different mall in Pittsburgh, or we go up
Century
to Youngstown.
3? Did you go to Century 3?
Century 3 was it was just
it was everything.
But I mean, it was everything. You go to this, and we'd spend an entire Saturday, and you just, there was toy stores, and there was, I worked at a National Record Mart when I was a kid.
I love
so,
National Record Mart.
I mean, that's, and you go into those places now, and it to a point, it almost like breaks your heart because, like you said, I can walk in Fort Steuben Mall. Remember, that was York Steakhouse. That was the Potato Patch. That's where Tom McCann was. That was where Elby's was in the mall. There was one in the mall, and there was one on Sunset Boulevard. But you walk in there now, and it's just, and even when they're trying to bring back Fort Steuben, and it was a point to where it was,
They were giving deals for people to come in. Yeah,
you could come in
they're
6 months rent free.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. If you wanted to do a storefront,
Now you
6
had
months
to
rent-free.
do all the construction and all that
Sure,
other
yeah.
stuff, but it was 6 months rent free to get up and get started. And for a quick second, I had thought about it. And I'm like, but they're dead. Like, I could put all this money in, and they're not going to come back the way that we had them when we were younger. And it's just it's sad. And
So, to put a cap on this episode, we'll get away from our dead and dying retail infrastructure. We'll go back to the music. Get Me Now, new single, pretty much everywhere, Apple Music, Spotify, new video. Catch it on YouTube.
And you can purchase it on iTunes.
Purchase song on iTunes.
So if you love the video, Forget Me Now, you can have it on your phone
nice. Very cool.
and ringtone.
Matt's most successful single, stream-wise. Let's keep it going up. Let's get him to CMT. Let's get him to radio. Get him everywhere.
Yeah, and let's get him to Nashville, and
Let's get it done.
yeah, we'll pretend to be a road crew just so we can get